Season 2, Chapter 3, What Watches from Above. The sky did not simply burn. It screamed. High above Colorado Springs, above the spiraling smoke columns, above the contrails of scrambling fighter jets, above the distant echo of sirens and collapsing towers, the heavens tore open as if reality itself had reached a breaking point. The clouds did not part. They folded. They bent inward, spiraling in on themselves like living flesh being drawn toward a wound. The blue sky fractured into vast concentric rings, each layer peeling back to reveal darkness that did not belong to night. Not shadow, not void, but something older, something aware. The wind died. The fires froze mid-flicker. Even the explosions across the city seemed to pause, as if the world itself had drawn a breath and forgotten how to release it. Mercer felt it before he saw it. The seal inside his chest did not flare. It did not pulse. It did not burn. It went still, not quiet, not dormant, still, as if a king had entered the room, as if something infinitely greater had just arrived, and everything else had instinctively bowed. Mercer staggered back a step, hand gripping his chest. "Oh no," he whispered, his voice barely sound, barely breath. "No, no, no, not this." Elena followed his gaze upward. Her breath caught sharply in her throat. Her fangs extended involuntarily. Her eyes, usually filled with regal calm and predatory confidence, widened with something she had not felt in centuries. "Fear. That's not the forgotten," she said slowly, every word tight with dread. "That's not even from this plane." Rashad's massive claws dug into the pavement, concrete cracking beneath his weight. His fur bristled violently, rippling with primal instinct. A low, guttural growl rolled from his chest, not rage, but warning. "No," he said, voice thick with something close to reverence. "The forgotten fear that. Above them, the flying forgotten. Those fractured, winged sentinels of balance, halted in midair. Their wings froze, their bodies trembled, their glowing cores dimmed. And then, as one, they bowed. Not crouched, not lowered. They prostrated themselves in the sky, wings folding inward, heads dropping, bodies angling downward in absolute submission. For the first time since their awakening, the forgotten showed worship. Pressure descended. Not gravity, authority. It crushed down on the city like an invisible ocean, bending knees, buckling spines, forcing breath from lungs. People screamed, people fell, people prayed. The clouds parted completely, revealing a vast circular absence, an eye-shaped void rimmed with pale gold light. It was not empty, it was watching. Within it, shapes moved, massive, serpentine, winged, layered. Forms too large for the sky to contain, coiling around one another like living constellations. The air vibrated with a frequency too low to hear, too deep to ignore. Passed through bone, through blood, through thought. Windows exploded outward across the city. Car alarms died mid-wail. Buildings groaned. People collapsed to their knees, hands clamped over ears, blood trickling from noses and eyes. At Peterson Space Force Base, alarms failed. At Schriever, satellite feeds went white. At Fort Carson, hardened officers, men and women who had faced war, death, and devastation, stood frozen, staring upward in silent terror. One soldier whispered, voice shaking, "What the hell is that?" The answer did not come from radar. It did not come from command. It came from memory. Lucien staggered back, nearly falling. His usually calm face drained of all color. His hands trembled as if he were a child again. "By the first night," he breathed. "By the first blood." Elena turned on him sharply. "Lucien," she snapped. "You know. Tell me you know." He swallowed hard. "They were never myths. We just renamed them, rebranded them, buried them in scripture and legend and false theology." The void pulsed, the gold light flared, and something descended. It did not enter the sky. The sky made room for it. Reality bent, space folded. A colossal figure emerged. Humanoid in shape but composed of layered light and living void, its form constantly rewriting itself, as if existence could not agree on what it was allowed to look like. Wings of translucent gold unfurled behind it, vast, cathedral-wide, each feather inscribed with shifting symbols older than language, older than magic, older than the planet itself. His face was smooth, featureless, perfect, except for 3 burning eyes arranged vertically down its face, each one a different shade of gold. Judgment, memory, finality. Mercer felt the seal react, not with resistance, but recognition. His knees buckled, his breath hitched, his mind flooded with images he had never lived. Stars being born, worlds dying, civilizations erased, names forgotten. Angels, Jake Hollins whispered behind him, voice shaking, eyes wide with awe and terror. That's an angel. That's a goddamn angel. Lucian spun on him violently. No, he shouted. That's what the church called them to make them digestible, to make them less terrifying. The being spoke. It did not echo. It did not project. It arrived. Inside bone. Inside thought. Inside soul. We are the watchers. The voice layered, thousands speaking as one. We are the first observers. We are what remains of judgment. Above the clouds, more shapes became visible. Dozens. Hundreds. A vast host circling the void like a living cathedral made of light and void and flame. The forgotten knelt in the sky like children before gods. Rashad bared his fangs. They kneel to that thing? Elena's voice was cold steel. They were created to maintain balance on Earth. But they were never the highest authority. The Watcher's gaze shifted. It found Mercer instantly. All 3 eyes locked onto him. The pressure tripled. The seal burned. The world narrowed. Lockbearer. Anomaly. Mistake. Elena grabbed Mercer's arm. Daniel, don't. He stepped forward anyway. Each step felt like walking through an ocean. If you're here to pass judgment, Mercer said, voice carrying unnaturally far, vibrating through the air itself, then you're late. Humanity already did that to itself. A murmur rippled through the watchers above. Vast shapes shifting, wings stirring, light pulsing like a heartbeat. The balance was broken when mortals chose dominion. Hunters disrupted the cycle. Vampires corrupted blood. Werewolves defied extinction. You united contradictions. Mercer clenched his fists. Because balance doesn't mean extinction. It means coexistence. Silence. Then, you are an error. Mercer lifted his chin. And you're afraid of what that error becomes. The Watcher paused. The void pulsed. The gold light dimmed slightly, and its voice returned, heavier, colder, absolute. It destabilizes the design. Season 2, Chapter 3, Part 2. When Judgment Breaks. The response from the human world was immediate and merciless. In Washington, D.C., beneath layers of reinforced concrete and sacred secrecy, the Situation Room had become a chamber of controlled panic. Screens lined every wall, each one alive with catastrophe. Colorado Springs burned under a sky that no longer behaved like a sky. Los Angeles had gone dark. Entire districts swallowed by rolling blackouts and riots fueled by fear, prophecy, and the sudden collapse of certainty. Denver streamed live footage of people praying in the streets while others tore down churches, screaming that God had finally shown his true face. The president stood at the center of it all, hands pressed flat against the polished table, her jaw tight enough to crack stone. Generals spoke over one another. We've lost air superiority over multiple states, one said, his voice hoarse. Colorado, Utah, Nevada, New Mexico, all reporting unidentified entities with non-Newtonian movement. They don't obey physics. They don't register properly on radar. They don't die. Another officer slammed a thick, classified folder onto the table. Papers spilled out. Photos of shredded fighter jets, inverted gravity zones, soldiers torn from the ground and hurled skyward. Civilian casualties are climbing exponentially, she snapped. Panic is spreading faster than we can suppress it. Religious riots in Denver. Phoenix is on fire. Los Angeles just went dark. Communications blackout across 3 counties. The Secretary of Defense lifted his head slowly, eyes hollow. Options. Silence fell. No one spoke, because no one had one. Then the chairman of the Joint Chiefs cleared his throat, the sound sharp in the stillness. "Martial law," he said, "nationwide." The word hung in the air like a death sentence. The president closed her eyes. For one long moment, she was not a commander-in-chief. She was just a human being standing at the edge of the unknown, staring into a sky that had finally stared back. "Do it," she said quietly. Across the country, emergency alert systems screamed to life. This is not a drill. All civilians are ordered to shelter in place. National Guard and active military deploying immediately. Tanks rolled through American streets that had once known only parades and protests. Curfews were enforced at gunpoint. National Guard units sealed neighborhoods behind concrete barriers and razor wire. Religious leaders declared apocalypse from pulpits and live streams alike. And somewhere deep beneath Black Hollow, Valeric laughed. The sound echoed through the ancient chamber, bouncing off stone that had not heard joy or mirth in millennia. Valeric stood before the door once more. Not a metaphorical threshold, not a symbolic barrier. A real door, ancient, massive, carved from something that shimmered like frozen starlight, its surface etched with sigils so old they predated written magic. Ley lines converged here, bleeding into the stone like veins feeding a heart. Behind it, prison, not for a body, for a truth. "They've revealed themselves," Valeric murmured, his crimson eyes reflecting the faint glow leaking from the cracks. "Good." A shadow shifted beside him, its form half-defined, wrapped in robes stitched from centuries of secrecy. "You planned for this?" the shadow asked, voice uncertain. Valeric did not look away from the door. "I planned for inevitability." He raised one hand, brushing his fingers lightly along a sigil that pulsed in response to his touch. "The Watchers cannot tolerate evolution," he continued calmly. "They never have. They observe, judge, and preserve a static perfection that never truly existed." The shadow hesitated. "And Mercer," Valeric finally turned, smiling, "is the one variable they cannot erase," he said softly, "because he is not part of their design." He pressed his palm against the central seal carved into the door. The prison answered. A crack spread outward, spiderwebbing through the starlight surface. Something on the other side shifted, stirred, awakened. Back in Colorado Springs, the sky had lowered, not physically but spiritually. The Watchers descended, their vast forms pressing down on reality itself. The air felt thick, heavy, as though every molecule had suddenly remembered fear. The Forgotten rose to meet them, not boldly, not defiantly, hesitant, uncertain, like children realizing the gods they had served were not benevolent. Rashad shifted fully, bones cracking as his massive werewolf form tore free of humanity. He towered over military vehicles, fur bristling, eyes glowing with primal fire. "If those things decide we're errors," he growled, voice like rolling thunder, "they won't stop at hunters." Elena stood beside him, fangs descending, crimson eyes burning brighter than the fires behind them. "They already consider us stains," she said coldly. "We just lasted longer." Lucian staggered, blood running freely from his nose as he began chanting, ancient syllables tearing themselves from his throat. Sigils bloomed in the air around them, layered wards of protection stacked desperately atop one another. "I can shield us," he gasped, "but not for long. Not against that." The Watcher spoke again. Its voice pressed into the city like a law written into the bones of existence. "Balance will be restored. The lock-bearer will be reclaimed. Light speared downward, pure, absolute, merciless." Golden chains erupted from the sky, wrapping around Mercer's limbs, his torso, his throat. They burned. Not flesh but essence. Mercer screamed. The seal ignited, flaring so brightly it hurt to look at. The chains ripped him off the ground, lifting him helplessly toward the Watchers. "Daniel!" Elena shouted, leaping forward, only to be thrown back by an invisible force. Rashad roared and charged, but gravity turned against him, slamming his massive form into the pavement. Mercer's vision filled with stars, memories that weren't his, worlds judged, species erased, mistakes corrected. Then, something else answered, not from above, from below. The earth shook, not like an earthquake, like a beast turning in its sleep. A roar echoed from deep beneath the Rockies. A sound so ancient it predated language, predated fear, predated the Watchers themselves. The golden chains snapped. Light shattered. Mercer crashed back to the ground, skidding across broken concrete, gasping for breath. Above them, the Watchers recoiled. For the first time, they moved backward. Rashad stared upward, stunned. What was that? Lucian whispered, eyes wide with horror and awe. The ones even they buried, the largest forgotten turned, not toward the Watchers, toward Mercer. His fractured form shifted, light dimming, posture lowering. When it spoke, its voice was no longer judgment. It was confession. We were not meant to rule. We were meant to delay. Mercer forced himself upright, blood running from his mouth, seal blazing. Delay what? He demanded. The sky trembled. The Watchers tightened formation, wings flaring, light intensifying. The Forgotten answered. The Devourers. The first hunger. What lies beneath the design? Elena's voice was barely a whisper. That's not possible. Lucian finished the thought, shaking. They erased them from history. The Forgotten bowed its head and failed. The Watcher raised its arm. Reality warped. Space bent inward. The lock-bearer must be unmade. The seal must be reclaimed. Mercer stood, shaking, bleeding, furious. No, he said quietly. The word carried. It rippled. It rejected. I'm done being your mistake. Mercer continued, voice growing stronger, echoing with something deeper than the seal. You want balance? Then stop trying to freeze the world in a broken past. The Watcher hesitated, just for a heartbeat. And in that hesitation, something moved beneath the mountains. Something vast. Something hungry. Something awake. Valric's laughter echoed faintly through the earth. Miles away, the ground split open. A black light surged skyward, tearing through stone and soil and ancient wards alike. The Watchers recoiled in unison. The Forgotten screamed, not in rage, in terror. It awakens. Mercer felt the seal flare brighter than ever before, not as a chain, but as a key. Elena grabbed his arm, nails biting into his skin. Daniel, whatever is coming. I know, Mercer said, eyes burning silver blue. And I think I was never meant to stop it. Above them, the sky darkened completely. Below them, something ancient stretched. And between heaven and earth, war chose its battlefield. Season 2, Chapter 4. The King Who Chose Balance. The first thing Dracula felt was the chains. Not their weight. He had long ago learned to ignore pain. It was their purpose that pressed into him like a second gravity. They were not forged to imprison a king. They were forged to restrain a catastrophe. Deep beneath the Carpathian Mountains, far below Castle Poenary's ruined spires, Dracula knelt within a cathedral of stone and sigils. The chamber had been carved directly into the mountain's heart, its walls etched with runes written in dead alphabets, layered one atop another like scars left by centuries of fear. Silver chains wrapped his arms, his torso, his throat, each link etched with warding glyphs that burned faintly crimson, reacting to the steady, restrained pulse of his power. Obsidian anchors bound the chains to the floor, each spike driven through ley lines that converged beneath the mountain like veins beneath flesh. Dracula did not struggle. He had chosen this. Above him, the ceiling trembled, not with the sound of collapsing stone, with something breathing beneath the world. His crimson eyes lifted slowly. So, he murmured, voice calm despite the tremor rolling through the earth. It stirs at last. The Devourer was waking. And somewhere above ground, the world was finally beginning to understand what it had inherited. Footsteps echoed down the descending corridor. Unhurried, powerful, unbound. Dracula did not need to look up to know who it was. Lycaon, the first werewolf, entered the chamber without hesitation. He was no longer chained. No runes burned across his skin. No sigils weighed upon his soul. He stood in full command of his monstrous form. towering, fur dark as storm clouds, eyes glowing gold with ancient authority. Free. You were right, Lycaon said, his voice reverberating off the stone. The ground screams. Dracula smiled faintly. It always does, when hunger stretches its limbs. Lycaon approached until only the chains separated them. He studied Dracula, not with hatred, not with rivalry, but with something far more dangerous. Respect. You knew this would happen, Lycaon said, long before the Watchers revealed themselves. Yes, Dracula replied simply. That is why I am here. Lycaon snorted. Bound like a relic. Contained, Dracula corrected. There is a difference. A distant roar echoed through the chamber, so deep it bypassed sound and struck directly at instinct. Lycaon's claws flexed unconsciously. The devourer feeds on imbalance, Lycaon said. On extinction. On domination. Dracula inclined his head. And for centuries, we have given it a feast. Lycaon's eyes narrowed. You speak as if you are not guilty. Dracula met his gaze evenly. I am more guilty than most. Silence settled between them, heavy as the mountain itself. Lycaon finally broke it. You imprisoned me once, he said, for the sake of the world. Dracula's voice softened. And now you must decide whether to free me, for the same reason. Lycaon growled low in his chest. You are the king of vampires. Your freedom has never ended well for anyone else. Dracula's eyes flickered. Not with anger, but with memory. Because freedom without balance is just another word for conquest, he said. I understand that now. Lycaon studied him carefully. You expect me to believe that centuries of bloodshed have taught you restraint? No, Dracula said. I expect you to believe the devourer will not be denied by force. The chamber shuddered violently. Dust rained from the ceiling. One of the obsidian anchors cracked, just a hairline fracture, but both of them felt it. Lycaon cursed under his breath. It's accelerating, he said. Yes, Dracula replied, because the Watchers have intervened. Lycaon's ears flattened. They revealed themselves fully. Judgment from above. They always do when the design is threatened, Dracula said. And they always make the same mistake. Lycaon tilted his head. Which is? Assuming the world is static, Dracula said quietly. That balance means returning to what was. Lycaon crossed his arms. Then tell me what is. Dracula lifted his chained hands slightly. The runes flared, projecting images into the air. Visions pulled from memory rather than magic. Ancient Earth. Before empires. Before monsters had names. Humans huddled around firelight. Wolves hunted beneath stars. No Watchers in the sky. This was balance, Dracula said. Not purity. Not order. Coexistence. The image shifted. Vampires rising, werewolves forming packs, humans adapting, fighting, surviving. The devourer was kept dormant, Dracula continued, because no single force dominated long enough to feed it. The vision darkened, wars, purges, exterminations. Then we forgot, Dracula whispered. Lycaon watched silently. You and I became symbols, Dracula said. Kings, legends, enemies. Lycaon's jaw tightened. Because you hunted my kind. And yours hunted mine, Dracula replied. We mistook survival for supremacy. The visions shattered. The chamber returned. Lycaon exhaled slowly. You believe the only way to stop the devourer is unity. Yes, Dracula said. Not submission. Not conquest. Balance between vampires, werewolves, and humans. Lycaon laughed bitterly. You want the world to trust you. No, Dracula said. I want the world to survive me. Lycaon stepped closer, his massive shadow engulfing Dracula. And if I release you, Lycaon growled. What stops you from seizing control again? Dracula lifted his eyes. You, he said. Lycaon froze. And Mercer, Dracula continued. And Rashad. And the Vampire Queen. And humanity. Lycaon studied him. You would rule nothing. Dracula smiled faintly. I would serve balance. The ground roared again, closer now. Lycaon turned sharply, staring at the stone floor as if he could see through miles of earth. It's rising, he said. Yes, Dracula replied. And if I remain chained, the world will fracture trying to fight it separately. Lycaon looked back at him. Then I must convince them. Dracula nodded. They will resist. They always do, Lycaon said. Tell them this, Dracula said softly. I am not asking for forgiveness, only for time. Lycaon turned to leave, then paused. If they refuse, Dracula closed his eyes. Then let the world remember why it feared hunger more than monsters. Colorado Springs was no longer a city. It was a wound. Fires burned unchecked. Military barricades lay shattered. Above, the sky rippled with watcher formations. Vast, silent, judging. Mercer stood amid the chaos, the seal on his chest blazing painfully bright. Elena stood beside him, face unreadable. Rashad paced nearby, claws scraping concrete. Lucian staggered, bracing himself against a broken wall. The ley lines are screaming, he rasped. Something beneath the Rockies is moving. A shockwave rippled outward. Lycaon appeared at the center of the street, his arrival cracking asphalt and throwing debris into the air. Rashad snarled instantly. Lycaon. Lycaon raised one clawed hand. Not now. Elena's eyes narrowed. You're free. Yes, Lycaon said. And that is the problem. Mercer stepped forward. What did you see? Lycaon met his gaze. Dracula, Rashad growled. No, Lucian whispered. He's bound. Exactly, Lycaon said. And he must be released. Elena's fangs descended. Absolutely not. The Devourer feeds on imbalance, Lycaon said. On extinction. On dominance. Rashad snapped. Dracula is dominance. Lycaon turned on him. So is war. The ground shook violently, stronger this time. Mercer winced, clutching his chest. He's right, he said through gritted teeth. The seal is reacting differently. This isn't about power anymore. Lucian nodded grimly. The Devourer predates all hierarchies. Elena stared at Lycaon. Why should we trust him? Lycaon's voice hardened. Because he chose chains when he could have chosen conquest. Rashad hesitated. Mercer looked up at the sky, at the Watchers tightening their formation. If we don't restore balance, Mercer said quietly, they'll erase everything. Silence fell. Then Rashad exhaled sharply. If he betrays us, I will kill him myself, Lycaon said without hesitation. Elena studied him, then Mercer. This changes everything, she said. Mercer nodded. It already has. The earth roared again, closer than ever. Mercer met Lycaon's gaze. Take us to him, Mercer said. Lycaon nodded. Far beneath the mountains, chains awaited their verdict. And for the first time in centuries, the fate of the world hinged not on who would rule, but on who would choose balance. Season 2, Chapter 5, The Pact Beneath the World. The mountain did not open like a door. It yielded like a wound. Stone groaned and peeled inward along invisible fault lines, slabs folding back upon themselves as if gravity had briefly forgotten its purpose. Veins of molten ley light, golden, silver, and something deeper, older, bled through the exposed rock, illuminating a spiraling descent that plunged far beneath the bones of the Rockies. Mercer stood at the edge of the opening, the seal in his chest thrumming with a low, anticipatory rhythm. It was not fear that made his breath catch. It was recognition. This place, he murmured. It knows me. Lycaon stood beside him, massive and unbowed, the ancient Alpha's presence pressing outward like a storm held barely in check. It knows what you carry, Lycaon corrected, and what you're about to decide. Rashad shifted his weight, claws scraping stone as he peered down into the spiraling abyss. I don't like tunnels that feel like they're listening. Elena adjusted the torn hem of her crimson coat, eyes narrowed as she traced the symbols carved into the exposed stone. These runes predate the first covens, she said quietly. Some of them predate language. Aurelian Voss, supreme warlock of the Conclave, closed his eyes and pressed his staff to the ground. His hair, once dark, had gone almost entirely white in the last 24 hours, a cost of channeling forces no mortal frame was meant to hold. The ley lines sang beneath his feet, vibrating up his bones like a tuning fork. "This is not a prison," Aurelian said softly. "It's an anchor, a fulcrum." Mercer swallowed. "For what?" Aurelian opened his eyes. "For the world." The descent began. The spiral wound downward for miles. The air grew colder, heavier, layered with pressure that made Mercer's ears pop and his vision shimmer at the edges. Each step felt like walking deeper into a memory the earth itself had tried to forget. Rashad led, his towering frame hunched to avoid scraping the walls. Elena followed with predatory grace, her senses stretched wide, tasting the air for threats. Aurelian leaned on his staff, murmuring counterharmonics under his breath to keep the ley pressure from crushing them. Mercer walked beside Lycaon, the seal glowing faintly beneath his skin, casting soft light across the ancient carvings. "How far?" Mercer asked after what felt like hours. Lycaon did not slow. "Far enough that the devourer cannot hear us argue." Rashad huffed. "Comforting." The tunnel finally widened, opening into a cavern so vast Mercer's sense of scale fractured. The ceiling vanished into darkness. Rivers of molten ley light flowed through channels carved into the stone floor, converging toward a central platform ringed by obsidian anchors the size of monoliths. And at the center of it all, Dracula knelt. The chains bound him were not merely restraints. They were verdicts. Each link glowed with layered sigils. Hunter enchantments etched in iron logic, which sigils written in blood and star ink. Werewolf runes burned with alpha authority. And, most unsettling of all, Watcher geometry carved so precisely it hurt to look at. Silver, obsidian, bone, starlight alloy, materials that should never have coexisted, were braided together in impossible harmony. The chains threaded through Dracula's body and shadow alike, pinning not just flesh, but presence. His head was bowed. His black hair spilled loose over his shoulders. His hands were bound behind him, posture neither defiant nor broken. When he lifted his head, his eyes were calm. "So," Dracula said, his voice echoing gently through the cavern, "the world finally remembers I exist." Elena stiffened instantly. "Do not mistake necessity for forgiveness." A faint smile touched his lips. "I never do, Vampire Queen." Rashad stepped forward, claws flexing. "Say one word out of place and these chains won't be the only thing breaking." Dracula's gaze shifted to him, studying him with ancient interest. "You are Lycaon's blood." Rashad bristled. "I am my own." Dracula inclined his head respectfully. "Then the world is already changing." Aurelian exhaled slowly, awe and dread warring across his features. "These bindings, they shouldn't be possible. Some of these sigils contradict each other." "They were never meant to coexist," Dracula replied. "That is why they worked." Mercer stepped closer, heart pounding. The seal flared softly, illuminating the chamber with a unified glow. Not silver, not gold, but something harmonized. Dracula's eyes locked onto him. "Lockbearer," he said quietly. "You feel it." Mercer nodded. "This place, it's not just holding you." "No," Dracula agreed. "It's holding everything else back." Lycaon moved to stand between them, massive arms crossed. "Enough reverence. We don't have time." As if summoned by his words, the cavern shuddered. A deep, distant roar rolled up through the stone. Hungry, patient, endless. Aurelian grimaced. "The devourer stirs." Dracula closed his eyes briefly. "Then we should speak plainly." He looked at each of them in turn. "If I am released," he said, "I will not rule." Elena scoffed. "You expect us to believe that?" "I expect you to bind me to balance itself," Dracula replied evenly. "Let my power rise and fall with equilibrium. If I tip the scales, it will destroy me." Aurelian inhaled sharply. "That would tether an apex immortal to a living equation." "Yes," Dracula said, "and it would make me accountable to the world, not above it." Silence fell, heavy and electric. Rashad blinked. "You're serious?" "I have never been more so." Lycaon nodded once. "That is why you were allowed to live." Mercer swallowed. "If we do this, it changes everything." Aurelian planted his staff against the stone. It will require all apex lines present. He looked to Lycaon, werewolf, to Elena, vampire, to Mercer, human, then to himself. Which? Elena's jaw tightened. And if we fail? Aurelian's voice was steady. Then the devourer won't need to be freed. Imbalance alone will finish the world. The mountain groaned again, closer this time. Lycaon growled. That's our cue. The ritual circle formed around Dracula's kneeling form. Aurelian moved with practiced urgency, carving sigils into the stone with blood and witchfire. Each line flared as it was drawn, resonating with the ley channels beneath. His chanting began low, rhythmic, words older than nations tearing from his throat. Lycaon sliced his palm, letting ancient alpha blood drip onto the runes. The stone drank it eagerly. Elena followed, slicing her wrist. Her vitae hissed as it touched the ley light, releasing a sharp, metallic scent that made Mercer's head spin. Mercer stepped forward, standing directly before Dracula. You ready? Mercer asked quietly. Dracula looked up, not as a king, not as a monster, but as something profoundly weary. No, he said honestly, but readiness is a luxury extinction never grants. Aurelian raised his staff. Begin. Mercer placed his hand over the seal. It answered instantly. Light burst outward, not blinding, not destructive, but harmonizing. The glow flowed into the ritual circle, weaving with vampire blood, werewolf essence, and witchfire. The chains screamed, not in pain, in resistance. Dracula arched as the bindings tightened, sigils flaring violently. Mercer felt it too, every judgment ever placed on the world pushing back against the idea of change. Lycaon roared, slamming his fist into the ground. Hold! Aurelian's chanting intensified. Blood streamed from his nose and ears, dripping onto the runes as his magic strained to contain forces far beyond mortal design. Elena clenched her jaw, fangs bared. Do not break now. Mercer screamed as the seal tore open. Not breaking, but expanding. His vision filled with interconnected lines. Humans, vampires, werewolves, witches. All threads in a single living tapestry. And then, the chains shattered. Not explosively, they unwove. Link by link, sigil by sigil. The bindings dissolved into light, spiraling upward like stars being reclaimed. Dracula collapsed forward, and Mercer caught him. For a heartbeat, everything was still. Then Dracula inhaled. Power surged, but it did not lash out. Settled. Dracula stood slowly, eyes glowing deep violet threaded with gold. Aurelian stared, breathless. The bond. It worked. Rashad exhaled shakily. He didn't spike. Elena studied him closely. You changed. Dracula looked at his hands. No, I was corrected. The cavern shook violently. The devourer, Lycaon snarled. Now, they emerged into daylight as the sky convulsed. Watcher constructs hovered above the world in vast formations of light and geometry, their presence oppressive, divine, merciless. The devourer's influence rippled beneath the earth, black fissures crawling across distant ranges. Mercer stepped forward, seal blazing brighter than ever, now carrying multiple signatures: human, werewolf, vampire, witch, unity. The watchers noticed. Their formation shifted. Their voices descended like thunder woven into thought. Balance altered. Dracula stepped beside Mercer. Not ahead, not behind. Equal. Lycaon joined them, then Elena, then Aurelian. The apex stood together. The watchers hesitated. Then they moved. Light speared downward, not at the earth, but through it. Vast constructs of binding geometry wrapped the devourer's rising presence. The earth screamed. The devourer roared furious. Denied. The watchers spoke as one. The hunger is bound. The design preserved. But the condition remains. One watcher descended lower, gaze sweeping across them. Conflict is acceptable. War is acceptable. Predation is acceptable. Extinction is not. All apex forces must remain. Balance must persist, or we return. The sky cleared. The pressure lifted. Silence fell. Mercer exhaled. They're leaving it to us. Dracula nodded. As they always do, Elena glanced at him. Do not test them. Aurelian wiped blood from his chin. Or us. Lycaon crossed his arms. This isn't peace. No, Dracula agreed. It's responsibility. Rashad looked to the horizon. Then let the world learn what balance really costs. Above them, the Watchers vanished into light. Below them, the Devourer slept once more. And for the first time in recorded history, the world was not ruled. It was shared.